I'm Alexis.
And I'm Tiffany, and we're the hosts of Legit KidLit, a video series where we get to see into the secret and silly lives of authors and illustrators.
We love to celebrate and promote books, but most of all, we want to say hey to all you readers out there trying to find that right book for you. We hope that you can find some new reads after today. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to middle grade author Chris Barron. Chris joins us for our 34th episode of Legit KidLit to celebrate his upcoming novel and verse, The Magical Imperfect.
Hey, I'm Chris Barron, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm in San Diego. I live here with my wife and my 3 kids, and I work as an English professor for a very long time, and I'm the middle grade author of a few books. I'm so happy to be here to connect with you and everyone. I'm a big fan of this show. Is this a show? That's what this is. These episodes, I love them.
Thank you. We love them too. So Chris, let's just jump right in. Let's start with secrets. We have no secrets around here. So please get this one off your chest. What is a secret that you have been dying to share?
Okay, I asked my family, what are secrets that I have that I'm dying to share? And they said that you're too vulnerable, you don't have any secrets. But I think I did find one that matters to probably no one else but me. But here's a secret. Since I have another book coming out, and I also have a short story in this YA anthology called Food is Love, my secret is, this is so nerdy, all my characters in my books and stories live in the same world. So there's a connection in one universe. So there's someone's cousin might be the grandfather in another book, or the coach in one story ends up being the friend of another person, or some of the characters go to the same places, or they have a distant relative that's connected. So that's my secret, everyone. So start looking for Easter eggs.
Wait, my mind is blown right now. I need to know more about this.
Okay, we feel like you're hiding something else. What is your secret talent?
Here's another one where I asked my family, what's my secret talent? And they said all the things that I post about normally, gardening. I don't know, not that that's a talent. I actually use the hashtag hopeful farmer because that's how I feel. Okay, but one thing that might be a secret talent is there's this side of me I discovered maybe 8 or 9 years ago. So my secret talent is martial arts. I do this form of martial arts, an Israeli form called Krav Maga. And I train in Krav Maga and was even teaching a little bit of Krav Maga and started focusing more on writing. But I love it. And I didn't know there was a side of me that liked fighting so much. I'm generally a pretty gentle person. But I have this side of me that has emerged. And I don't know, I like it.
You're kind of isn't the samurai warrior who writes haiku poetry? And then they're warriors.
I love that. I love that so much. In fact, one other thing that I would share is I volunteered with the C.S. Lewis Foundation and worked for them at a conference in England years ago. And no one knew necessarily that I was a poet there. And so I got up at an open mic night at Oxford, and I've been driving vans. I was in charge of driving conferees around the Oxford to their different, the different sessions, and then sneaking in on my own. But then that night, I remember I did a spoken word poem, and then from then on, I was called the trucker poet. So samurai, trucker, poet, I like all of it.
That's really cool. I feel like we're gonna maybe get more into that samurai, trucker, poet later on in the interview.
That sounds interesting.
So 2020 was a year of staying home for many of us, and that meant, Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu. So I bet you've got quite an awesome Netflix queue. Will you be willing to show us?
So my Netflix queue is a little bit, has been taken over by my Disney Plus queue and other various things I can talk about. But I think if you see it, it's got, all the classics, The Great British Bake Off, Hilda, which we loved as a family, Nadia Bakes, all those shows. What's missing though from there, which is Avatar: Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, Dragon Prince, and as a family, my middle grade aged kids, although one of them is now a high school aged kid, we love all those shows. So Netflix has been like a watch it over again. I think we've watched like complete series like The Office, all these shows. I love that. The idea of a show as comfort. I think books are the same way. We reread books. My daughter, my 13-year-old daughter now, read all the Wings of Fire books, and now she wants all the graphic novels. She doesn't want to reread the other books, but the comfort in those stories and those worlds. And I know it's for me too. Every year I read the Silmarillion, which is a Tolkien book, because the storytelling just takes me away and gives me that comfort. And I've had a lot of discussions on Twitter and other places about rereading, and even in middle grade books. My kids are reading these books that I love, and I'm just like looking over their shoulder like, what part are you on? So totally get that.
One last thing about you, and then we will move on to your books, especially the beauty that is the Magical Imperfect. What are 5 must-haves to be Chris Barron?
This makes me laugh so hard. I love this question. 5 must-haves. You must have nature, because I grew up in New York City, and even when I lived in New York City, I was always in Central Park. So I used to walk home from school and like take the long way through the park. But I won't elaborate this much on every one of them. Lots of quiet time and time for the sacred. My family, so obvious, but very, very true. I've never met people I love so much and love hanging out with so much. Community and friendships, that I'm one of those, like a few close friends and a big wide community of people that are kind of there for each other. So that's important to me. And then this is the most important one, pizza. As much pizza as humanly possible is good.
Can you find good pizza in California?
Finding good pizza in California is like a fun game that's full of suffering. But then the rewards are great. So there is some good pizza in San Diego where I live. There are a few great pizza places we've found. But then going back to New York, although sadly I haven't gone, right? No one's done anything for the year. But when I was going to New York a couple years ago, I think I ate enough pizza for the next few years. So I'm caught up, I think. But we did find some good places. There is some good pizza.
What is your favorite topping?
I don't know. What is my favorite pizza topping? I like just cheese. Is that so boring? I'm anti-pineapple. I hope I didn't offend anyone with that comment.
I love cheese also, if it's really good mozzarella cheese. Sometimes some Romano on top as well. But I love pepperoni and pineapple. It's really good. You did not offend me though. Everyone can have their own opinions about pizza.
Okay, good. All pizza is good pizza. So just making sure.
I am so excited to talk The Magical Imperfect. Just like your debut, All of Me, this book is written in verse style. Why verse?
So I like to say that poetry is my native language, that I've always loved poetry. I feel like writing in verse provides like a structure for the internal and provides a way to communicate feelings and emotions, especially on deep, difficult topics. And in particular, middle graders who I think have like an ocean of feelings that they don't always know how to express. I like to give this anecdote where if I go to a class and, if I'm doing class visits, I always ask them, like, how many of you have parents or, I don't know, siblings or loved ones that go, how was your day? And often their response is, fine, good. But there's a whole world of things that have happened that they would want to communicate about maybe, but don't necessarily know how, or that they're thinking, or don't imagine that they would share it. So for me, verse becomes, a focus on imagery and figurative language that helps to translate and help understand those emotions. So it provides that structure. It opens the door to like an internal landscape of characters. But I think it also offers a lot of space on the page and breaths for those emotions and things that are happening in the story. And it also uses, or allows for a lot of fast-paced reading. So stories move very, very fast in verse. Especially, free verse. And I know the forms that I use typically are the syllabic structures, but free verse, so that it's fast-moving and self-contained. So I love verse because it gives a structure inside all of the elements of storytelling. There's plot, character, setting, point of view, theme, conflict, but it's moving very fast and it zeroes in with a really tight lens on different aspects as we go.
That was beautiful. I love how you stated that the whole time. I'm like, yes, that's amazing. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I did not know about novels in verse until like just 2 years ago, and I'm sure they've been around forever. So when I was introduced to it, I was like, what is this beautiful, like, whole world that I just never knew was there? So I really appreciate reading novels in verse and just the beauty that you described.
I also became very obsessed with novels in verse recently with, I think, Crossover by Kwame Alexander is what did it. But then I was thinking back, and one of my favorites, I have like 3 books that I remember throughout my childhood. One of them was Out of the Dust by Karen Hesse, and it's a novel in verse, and I never really thought of it that way. So they have been around, but I feel like they've become I don't know, is it a genre or a style of writing that has really picked up speed. And I think that all that you said is why kids love it. Because I know that my students, as soon as I open up a book and just say, hey, this is in verse, half of them are interested, over half are interested in it. Whereas if I didn't, I don't think they'd be like, I don't know, I don't care about it. But they're intrigued by the poetry and the less words on the page, and it's faster moving. So I think I think you got that correct, or you said that very well.
I didn't expect it either. I remember that when All of Me debuted, I was at a nerd camp SoCal, and I did a poetry workshop in the morning and with kids, and I think it was a 4th grader, and they all got a copy. And then I was at a signing later that day, and then one of the kids walked up to me and he's like, look how far I've read. And, he was like, I have a book here, but he was like, down to here or something. And I was like, that's so cool. And I don't even know if he liked the book. But then when he walked away, I signed it and he walked away, and his teacher came up and said, you have no idea that this kid never reads. And I know it has to do with the verse, because it just, you feel like, I think readers feel like they can accomplish a lot. So that anecdote was really surprising to me, but it totally makes sense. And maybe that's something that I've loved about poetry too.
What do you hope young readers learn after reading your story, The Magical Imperfect?
What did I hope they learn? I really hope that young readers will learn a lot of interesting facts. When I wrote this book, I did so much research. So I want like a research guide to go along with it, but that would be really boring for people because not everyone cares about research like that. But I have like a little bit of a list. I hope that they learn all about this unbelievable earthquake that happened in 1989 during the World Series. I hope they learn a bit more about, skin conditions, selective mutism, immigration through Angel Island, the importance of intergenerational relationships, like with grandparents and elders in a community. And also, I mean, this is a really important part, the moral of the story about magic, that there's magic all around us. And it doesn't always look like what we think it looks like. And also just the value of friendship without judgment, and that I think the world kind of presses down on us to make judgments, especially now. Before we even know anyone or know anything, we're pushed to make a decision about who someone is. And I think this book, I hope people take away, and learn that it's okay to have your own thoughts about a person and a friendship, and that it really doesn't matter what everyone thinks. Even if the pressure is on, that you can learn to make your own decisions.
You mentioned earlier of the Easter eggs in your books. So what connections are in All of Me and the Magical Imperfect?
So there's a lot of connections with the way the books are written that I would want to talk about. But one of the connections is that they both take place in the Bay Area in California. So that's San Francisco Bay Area. And that's part of the connection, the Easter egg connection, but I don't want to reveal all of it yet because I'm still building that even in books I'm writing right now but it's there. There's a lot of cool little connections. Another connection between those two books is the personal connections. I taught creative writing for a long time, and I've always told people, like, write what you know, and it's so incredibly true. So there's a lot of personal connections. I know All of Me was called by the LA Times a fictional retelling, and it is. Like, those are a lot of experiences that I've been through, and Magical Imperfect has a lot of personal connections as well, even though it's totally fiction. There's a lot of personal connection with the main characters. And I'll just say, my wife, this is in the author's note of the book, struggles with a very difficult chronic skin condition. So there's a very personal connection there. Just as in All of Me, there are many other personal connections. And there's a deep connection with the grandfather that I think, there's a kind of a intergenerational relationship connection in both books. So these themes are present, even though they're vastly, vastly different in the stories. I think these are connections between the books and things that I hope will be communicated through the storytelling.
What shows or books would Eitan be into?
I love this question about what shows and books would Eitan be into. I'm such a nerd, but I think he would love the Last Airbender series, because it's all about, the hero, the unsuspecting hero who doesn't know what to do, but goes in courage and tries, because that's so important. And books, that's a good one too. I think he would probably like The Phantom Tollbooth. It's a classic. It's funny because when you start thinking about what books would my characters read, then they all start to pile up. I'm like, oh, he'd read The Hobbit because he'd want to get away. But there's so many books that I can just think of, especially contemporary books. Like, he would love so many of the modern middle grade books, I think, that are out there.
Well, what music would Malia be listening to?
Malia is totally into music, so it's kind of a spoiler, but obviously she'd be listening to Cyndi Lauper, probably Madonna, probably any 80s pop, but also like a lot of 80s hip hop, because she loves to sing, and she loves to sing all the popular music. Oh, and of course Duran Duran as well.
I loved all of the 80s music references. I want to make a playlist of them all.
That's such a good idea. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do that.
Please share. Are you offering virtual visits for educators and librarians? And if so, how can they reach you?
I am definitely doing virtual visits. It's been really fun. Like everyone, I was sad. I had a bunch to do, and I was going to travel around and do them. But I'm doing virtual visits. The best place to reach me is on my website, and there's a little contact form, and that just goes to me. And it's funny, when I started doing them, I was so elaborate with my descriptions of the kinds of workshops that I would do. And some of those are still there. But what I found is I love just connecting with the teacher and saying, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to talk about poetry, storytelling, Minecraft, Fortnite dancing? Like, what is it that would be the best thing to talk about for your class? Or maybe, and these are the best times, is when young readers have read the books and then we talk about the story. And then I'll just say one fun thing that's happened with all of me is because it was such a long book in draft form and then was edited down. I had tons of deleted scenes. So it's really fun in author visits to read the deleted scenes with the kids who have read the books, because there's alternative endings and different things that characters do. That's been super fun. So yes, I love doing virtual visits and look forward to doing them with more this year.
Great thing about rapid fire questions is Chris doesn't even know.
So earlier, you were dubbed the Samurai Trucker Poet. I hope I got that right. And we would love for you to write a haiku about that.
My haiku. Samurai trucker poets speak words into darkness, fighting evil at dawn.
Last time you seriously LOL'd.
Yesterday, I dropped my kids off at school. They're at school. They started back. And there's a sign that said, end road work. And my daughter, my middle grade daughter said, Dad, is that a protest against road work? And I could not stop laughing. I couldn't even drive away from the drop off. I had to calm down first.
Tell us the strangest thing you've ever eaten.
Okay, so remember that the majority of my family is Filipino. So there's lots of strange foods on the Jewish side, but on the Filipino side, I've eaten pelot, which is fertilized developing egg embryo, which sounds, I don't want to be offensive, but that for me was the strangest thing. I know that it's something that's eaten normally, but I remember even at our engagement party with my wife many years ago, everyone was just staring at me while I ate it. So that. I'm going to add this other strange thing that I ate, which was a live goldfish. And it is one of the most regrettable moments of my entire life that I did on a dare. Don't do things on a dare.
All right, finish this sentence. When I dance, I look like
Michael Jackson. Clearly. Or maybe you've seen Shrek.
This has seriously been some of the best conversation I've had in a while. Really enjoyed this interview. We have one final question for you. What is the closest thing to magic you've experienced?
I love this question.
I got emotional thinking about this because I wanted to talk about times like in forests or things I've seen. But there's two that come up and they're cheesy. But the one is when I met my wife and I knew that I loved her. It was an open mic and she read a poem and I just really connected with that, and that was magic to me. The other magic was being there when my kids were born, just being part of that. It was like beyond magic because I always loved magic growing up. I believe in magic, supernatural. I believe in all of that. But to see that happening was absolute magic.
Well, thank you so much. We have enjoyed talking with you, Chris, and learning about poetry and being a samurai trucker poet and just having a lot of fun and having a great conversation. So we are very thankful that you could join us today, and we hope that you take care.
Thank you so much to both of you for being such a light and for being educators and doing all that you do and having me on, and loved connecting with you.